Welcome to the Potion Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC.
There we go.
There we go. I don't know why I did that. Okay, give me a second.
That's okay.
Let me check the angle here. Just going to slide a little bit over there. There we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
I can indeed.
Lovely.
Love the
How are you?
AirPods. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been one of those days.
Look at you all fancy in your black chef's jacket.
That's what I always wear behind the bar.
Oh.
I can wear a t-shirt underneath this and not worry about looking the way I look when I go to work. No vest, no bow ties, just a good old chef's jacket.
I like it. That used to be when I used to do my kitchen training. Mm-hmm. It was my favorite thing ever because it was like going to work in pajamas every day.
Exactly. It's so comfortable. Like the top one's a little bit aggressive, but like overall it's as comfortable as hell.
I used to cheat and fold mine back.
I'll do the little
Yeah.
I do that when I got a collared shirt today. I was like, I'm going to class it up a little bit just for you.
Thank you. I wore a t-shirt. You're welcome. We've got a good number of people on here, so
awesome.
Why don't I kick it off? So hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fever Tree Happy Hour. My name is Alexis Green, and I'll be your host for today. I'm the National Brand Engagement Manager for Fever Tree Canada, and joining me is Shawn Soole, Bar Manager of Clive's Classic Lounge in beautiful Victoria, BC. And somebody already commented that they saw the Empress bottle very subtly placed right behind me. So
it's a good choice. It stands out.
It does. And I do love me some Empress, though that's not what we're going to be drinking today. So
no.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. To our viewers, we want this to be fun and as interactive as possible. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. So we'll start out with the super easy question. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your career, and how you got into this crazy industry.
We'll start with that. I left home when I was 17 years old, and I went to work at a hotel, of all things, as a handyman. So I was a handyman landscaper because I was a landscaper before I got into hospitality when I was in high school. And one night, the food and beverage director very panically asked me if I had black and whites. And I was like, yeah, I've got black and whites. And he's like, go home and get them. Be back here for 7. You've got a wedding to do tonight. Okay. And I was 18 and a bit years old, and I did a wedding, and that was something I just fell in love with. I come from a very small town in Australia, so I never actually went to a proper restaurant my whole entire life before I started in this industry.
Wow.
Yes.
You've come quite a ways since then.
Just a little bit.
You want to tell them sort of about your trajectory, and you can talk about Soole hospitality as well?
I was in Australia for about 8 years before I came to Canada. Did quite well in Australia, ran a lot of good bars, won some titles and cocktail competitions and stuff like that. Made top 10 best bartender lists and stuff like that. And then I came to Canada in 2006 to Victoria only. Fell in love with my wife about 6 months later and stayed here. And so I've been in Victoria for 14 years now. So I've been in Victoria longer than I've been anywhere else in the world. And so I used to run Clive's from 2009 to 2013. I left Clive's, and then very recently I actually came back as the new bar manager after COVID. So sort of a full circle trajectory on where I've come. And in between that time of leaving Clive's and taking back over Clive's, I've done 2 cocktail books, 12 venues, spoken all around the world. I've done a few things, a lot of stuff. And so now my company, Soole Hospitality Concepts, just consults for bars and restaurants all over the world.
Very cool. What's the most exotic place you've gone to for work, for consulting?
To be honest, my time in Singapore last year, Singapore for some reason just felt like home. I did 5 months in Singapore. I had to my family didn't come with me, so I had to live sort of a bachelor life. And I fell into a very quick regime of what I did on a daily, weekly basis. And Singapore is just an amazing city to be a part of. Like, it is a a gorgeous city. It's super metropolitan, but also very traditional, tropical climate. It's just I can't describe it and compare it to anywhere else in the world.
Very nice. I've heard lovely things. We have mutual friends who live there. So
Yes.
one day I will make it back to the Far East and get to see that. Um, it's very cool. I'm very, very jealous of, like, I get to travel, but like not like that. Not, I mean, for work. I mean, the most exotic place I think I've ever been to for work is probably North Dakota. So, um, yeah. So do you want to tell? Oh, I think that he might have frozen. Did you freeze, Sean? Are you frozen? I think I might be talking to myself, so I'm just going to say hi to all of you. Does anybody have any questions for me while we're waiting, for Sean to come? This might be a one-woman show. Hi, Catherine Brown. Hello. Oh, and I think we've got Sean back. Oh, I love all your waves. You make me feel like I'm not talking to myself.
I don't know what happened there.
I don't know, you completely froze. I was talking about how the most exotic place that I've ever had to travel to for work was North
It was
Dakota. I
North
was making
Dakota.
a joke. I was waiting for the laugh. It totally didn't land because you froze right at that moment and it was crickets. And I was like, cool, talking to myself. Awesome.
I have no idea what went on there.
I don't know. I've never seen that happen before, but welcome to COVID and Instagram Live. So tell us a little bit about Clive's Classic Lounge then.
So Clive's reopened it. It actually renovated from a British pub to what it is now in 2009, and I took over about 6 months after that. And we sort of turned into a very classic European-style hotel bar, which I really, really loved and sort of pushed for. And it was a 4-year process. We won a bunch of awards and got nominated for a whole bunch of stuff, which is really, really good. But at the end of the day, it was this classic hotel bar. And I think around the time that this sort of happened, hotel lobby bars around the world were really making a resurgence. The Artisan in the Langham in the UK, bars in Dublin and Belfast. And so I think the hotel lobby bar was really making a return. So I think we sort of clicked into something really perfect at that time. And so 2013, I left to open my own venue. And so Clive's has sort of always been this staple, this foundational block in cocktail culture in Victoria. And so now being back here and sort of taking over post-COVID has been a very interesting curveball and life cycle. But I'm happy to sort of see it still chugging along really nicely and taking back over and sort of leaning into that European style hotel lobby bar again.
Okay. And what kind of style is Clive's? Like you mentioned that it was European, but does it have a particular style or is it just very like generally European?
For me, I really like leaning into those European style hotel lobby bars of yesteryear, the Harry's bar in Paris, the Savoy bar in London, that sort of style of just classic hotel bar where you could always go for a good cocktail. I feel like European hotel bars never lost that gleam the way we did in North America. Like North American hotel bars all of a sudden became sort of like cheesy and eh. And with European hotel bars, they always sort of kept this sort of level of, sort of above level of the market of service and ambience and quality and all this sort of stuff. So I've been pretty lucky that we've kept to that sort of method.
Very cool. I like it. So, talking about bars, I'm sure everybody's thirsty. And since it's happy hour,
We
do
should
you
do
think
a
it's
cocktail.
time to make a drink?
Yes. So this is a cocktail. It's super simple. When you guys reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we want you to do a cocktail," I'm like, I really want to do this one, but I watched a few of the other happy hours. I'm like, oh, my cocktail's really simple, and that guy's one is like super like 5 ingredients sort of stuff, and mine's like, eh. But then you taste and you're like, oh, it's not eh, it's pretty good. And so I was like, is this one that I really want to do for the Fever Tree happy hour? But I was like, you know what, I'm leaning into this one. I've always liked Amaros, and Clive's has always been a home base for like bitter and Amaro culture in Victoria and
Mm-hmm.
BC. So I'm coming back behind the bar, being away from my home office for a couple of hours a week. We have a ton of Amari here, and I'm like, I really want to lean into this. And this is one I ordered the Fever Tree lemon tonic, knowing that these two would pair really well. I've never tasted them together, but I knew that they would work really well. So it's like, we have to do this. So this is on our happy hour menu, and it's going to be on our next menu as well. It's called the Averna Limone. So really, it's super simple. If you can get a bowl of Averna. So Averna is a Sicilian Amaro. So very sarsaparilla, root beer, little coffee tones, really easy drinking, very Sicilian style Amaro. And all it is a hot classic highball, which I think bartenders should be exploring highballs more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think highballs, people sort of poo-poo it or overcomplicate them. And I think bartenders should really look at a highball going, this can be really elevated and really simple at the same time. And having a simple elevated cocktail on the menu just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2 ounces of Averna, and then just top with the lemon tonic. And it seems really simple, and this is why I was sort of holding back on doing this one in particular, especially after seeing some of the other happy hours. But then when I taste it, I'm like, this is really good. And
But
so,
we like simple because most of our viewers, like some of them for sure, are in our industry, but a lot of people who watch these videos are, like everyday people who go to work and come home and just want like a simple drink. Like sometimes you want to, as what is it, queer, I would say they want to like zhuzh up their cocktail with the 5 ingredients, but sometimes you just want to come home and mix like a proper 2 ingredient cocktail and go out and enjoy sort of the final days of summer, or relax, and it's easy and it's quick and it's delicious.
100%. And that's my thinking, is that I love Italian. I love Italian cocktail culture for that. Like, you look at,
Mm-hmm.
it's Negroni week this week,
Yep.
and you look at the Negroni, the Cardinal. Why is my phone is really playing up right now? It's really embarrassing. Um, oh my God, I'm
It's
so
okay. We can still hear you. Oh, no. And then now you've gone. So, while Shawn is gone, maybe I'll tell you all about our lemon tonic. So our lemon tonic is nice and tangy. We use Sicilian lemons. They come from mature groves in Sicily. And the way that we extract the flavors, and I'm sorry if there's anybody Italian on this, but
I am
it's okay,
sorry.
Shawn. I'm telling them
So
about the lemon tonic.
sorry.
So apologies if anybody is Italian on here, but we extract the flavors by using a process that perfume makers use called sfumatrice. And I think I said that properly. I'm sorry if I didn't. And what that does is it extracts the oil without bruising the fruit.
Mm,
So that's one of the main components in the lemon tonic. The other big component in all of our tonics is quinine. Yes, it's pronounced quinine. Who knew? That comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it comes from what's called the cinchona tree. And actually, the plantation that we so it's it's the bark on the outside of the tree, that we get our bark from, is the only remaining original plantation of that, like original variety of cinchona. And the cinchona tree's nickname is, you can answer this one, Shawn.
I don't know.
Fever tree. It's the fever tree.
Really?
Yeah.
I
So,
did not know that about Fever Tree.
yes. So it comes from the cinchona tree, which they nicknamed the fever tree because during the East India Wars, this is, the history of the gin and tonic.
Yeah.
British soldiers went down and they noticed that when people in India would get sick with a fever, usually from malaria, they would chew on this bark and it would help break the fever. It wouldn't cure the malaria, but it would definitely help to sort of like assuage the symptoms.
Hmm.
Um, I don't recommend anybody chew on cinchona bark because you will absolutely hallucinate. It's not a good idea. Um,
It's
so
very
no
barky.
therapy. It's also very barky, very bitter. But what they did is they took it and they would mix it with their rations of Navy gin, a spoonful of sugar, as Mary Poppins would say, and some of their citrus that they had to fight scurvy. And that's basically where you got the original gin and tonic. So that's where the name of the company comes from, the fever tree, from the cinchona tree. And it's some of the highest quality quinine in the world. It's made with all natural ingredients, fresh spring water from a borehole. In the UK, borehole basically just means really deep well. And
Borehole doesn't sound great.
No, it doesn't, but it sounds very technical, I
guess.
And the carbonation is really important as well because they're really, really fine bubbles that help carry the flavor, but you don't get that like ouch feeling in your mouth that you get when you get some of that, like what I call lazy carbonation, those big fat bubbles. So that's what makes it lovely. And then I was going to ask you to maybe chat about what an Amaro is, and Averna falls into which category of Amaro for our at-home people. And by the way, I'm going to cheers you.
Oh, because you make one yourself?
I did, but I made a little twist. So I'm going to talk about the twist after.
So, Amaro in general is a super infusion of bitter herbs, spices, pretty much anything you can think of goes into, like we have China, which has got artichoke leaf into it. So each individual, especially in Italy, I think is where most Amaros come from. You've got Emirs in France, Germans have styles of bitters, but every region has this different style of Amaro. And 9 times out of 10, it definitely fits into the food people eat, what they drink. Averna goes really well with coffee after eating like salty fish, and you can imagine Sicilian food being very seafood heavy. You go to the north and you've got Montenegro. You go to Rome and Milano and Milan, you've got Campari, Cina, Aperol, all these very different styles. And so Amaro is a bit of a rabbit hole where you start really like delving down into where these Amaros come from, what the region eats, what the region drinks, and how they sort of help digestion and help to make you feel like you're hungry as well. So they're always very interesting. I always have arguments about aperitif and digestive because I think that all Amaros and bitters fall into the same sort of thing. Like Campari can be used as an aperitif to drink before you eat, but it also can be used as a digestive after you eat. Really, at the end of the day, Amaros pump alcohol and a complex herbal base into your system, and your system's like, I have to process this. So how do I get the alcohol and this complex herbs out of my system as quickly as possible? Because not necessarily being a bad thing, but like it takes a lot of work for those things to be processed by the body. So when you eat food and then you drink this after, your body's like, oh, I'll grab that and go, I need to process this as quickly as possible, and it helps you digest your food. Same thing with being an aperitif, like you drink the aperitif and then don't phone. I'm going to come on this side because this is really bugging me now. And I don't want to be
just have the drink, stay on that side. We get to see the close-up view of you. It's all good. While Shawn's fixing his phone, so he was saying that aperitifs are to stimulate the appetite before a meal, and digestives are to help digest the meal after. And I absolutely love where this froze on his face because I think he's sticking out his tongue at us. That was the best face freeze ever.
Oh my God. We tested this and it still didn't play up this much. This is insane.
Yep, that's okay.
So it's not my style though. That's the thing.
I know.
Everybody loves my bloopers, but this is a little bit ridiculous. So bitters and Amaros help your stomach to sort of process the food, help you sort of push the meal that you've had. That's why you see the Italians, they eat beautiful pasta and tomatoes and all this sort of food. And if you don't have that Amaro afterwards, you can sort of feel like it's heavy in your stomach.
Yeah.
But then you have an Amaro and you're like, oh, I can go out and party now. I can go out and eat, I can eat more at 9 p.m.
I can have dessert. Yep.
I can have dessert. So the reason why I love this is that the Averna Amaro and lemon tonic, for me, tastes like an old-timey cola. It tastes like an old-timey Coca-Cola. Like, it's got all the flavor of what a Coca-Cola would have or a cola would have back in the day. This little twang, and the lemon tonic isn't overly like tonic-y. If I can, if that's a word, you can use that in descriptors in
It's not
marketing.
overly bitter.
It's not overly tonic-y. It sort of reminds me of lemon squash that we used to have in Australia,
Yes.
which you can't get over here. But like lemon squash, that's what it reminds me of. And so this drink has been super popular for us with that descriptor as like an old-timey Coca-Cola. It's an alcoholic adult Coca-Cola, and it's really
Yeah,
tasty.
it is very tasty. And for those of you who may have a sweeter palate, or maybe you can't find the lemon tonic, I made mine with our Sicilian lemonade, which
Mm.
actually isn't bitter at all, and it is delicious.
And
So
it would give you the
you
same
can
sort of
hack it.
flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sort of just I don't know why I thought it would work because obviously with the supply chain in all of Canada because of COVID, things take some time. And I ordered it when I first took over. I'm like, I know this is going to work with the Verna. I don't know why it's going to work with the Verna, but I know it's going to work with the Verna. And so I really looked when the cases came in, I cracked it straight away and I was like, everybody taste this, and cracked it and tasted. I'm like, that's going on the happy hour menu.
That's awesome. So since it's happy hour and because we like to have fun, I thought I would ask some fun questions that we can both take turns answering.
Okay.
So, what is the funniest or weirdest guest you've ever had? Keeping it PG.
Keeping it PG.
Yep.
Um, I suppose I can't talk about violent ones, can I?
No, we're trying to go for like funny and weird.
I've had a lot of funny and weird guests in the past. I had one guest who swore that he helped create Apple with Steve Jobs, like like re-
Wow.
like sat at the bar regularly and talked about stories about Steve Jobs. But then when you Google him, none of his records, like his name doesn't come up in any way, shape, or form. Um, I've had wonderful guests that would just be the guys who would sit at a booth by themselves, order the same thing every time, and would just be so clockwork. Every Friday, 5 p.m., come in for the same meal, come in for the same drinks. You're really 22 years behind the bar. I've had everything, like everything thrown at me, from bachelorettes to people like we used to play a game, which is, I think is a fun one, is that you take three coasters and you give it to the guest, and the guest throws three coasters on the back bar, and you have to make a drink with those three ingredients that they
Oh,
throw.
kind of like a 649,
Yes, I
but with
suppose
more
yes.
purpose because you're
That
throwing things.
yeah. So like they'd be trying to hit like a certain gin, and then the coaster would go Shwa! And you'd end up with rum, or you'd be going for a certain liqueur, and it would go to a bit like Fernet Branca or a bitter Amaro. And so I think those are the funny ones. I'm really lucky that I've had regulars in Victoria for like 12 years that come to every venue I go to, sit at my bar, drink the cocktails I make, and all of them are weird and quirky in their own special way. And I think I would class myself as a little bit eccentric, I suppose, and so I tend to attract eccentric people. I suppose I tend to attract and then service eccentricities.
Fair enough. I would say the most, I don't know if this would qualify as a funny story, but definitely one of the most standout stories in probably all of my 20 years in the industry was I was just starting out working in a nightclub. Oh, we've got a question about famous guests, so we can answer that one after. I was working in a nightclub and it was the end of the night, 2 o'clock. Nothing good happens after 2 o'clock, by the way. And some girl, woman, whatever, asked me for a bottle of water, and I accidentally gave her a bottle of sparkling water, like Perrier or whatever. And she was so angry that I gave her sparkling water that she shook it up and dumped it on me. Like, not like, sorry, I asked for flat water or this isn't what I ordered. Like, there was no verbal communication. It was just like shake, 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 fizz all over me.
What?
Yep, that happened.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I can laugh about it now. I was feisty and angry, feistier, I guess, and angry
Did you
back
kick them
then.
out?
Um, No, but there was a moment where I may have tried to hop the bar to address said guests, and you see like the big security guy just sort of put a hand on my shoulder, and he's like, "I got this," and I just continued it. So it didn't end up being anything dramatic beyond me being soaking wet, but I guess he saw the go.
The foot on the rail and
The
like the
foot on the
hop
rail,
over, yeah.
exactly. Back in the day when that was, I won't say acceptable, but you get away with a lot more working in a nightclub than anywhere else. And I was
What?
like 19 and fresh into
Big
the
time.
industry. Yeah, so
Well, the thing is, I think we always wanted to legitimize the industry. Like we're always like, I wish people would take us seriously as our job. Usually our parents. And then
yeah,
when the legitimacy came along, you're like, oh, but now I can't do this, this, this,
I can't
this,
say
this,
this. I
this,
can't.
this. Yeah, I got to be legitimate now. Like I
Yeah,
called for this legitimacy. Now I have to be legitimate.
yeah. So we've got a question about famous guests.
Oh, I've got some good ones.
Oh yeah, me too. You want to go first?
Well, I worked on Hayman Island in the Great Barrier Reef for about 12 months. So I've served Bridget Fonda, Sarah O'Hare, um, Lachlan Murdoch, um, Fox News Murdoch. I served his
Oh,
son. Yeah. So
okay.
a lot of Australian artists, because we were one of the only five-star resorts in the Great Barrier Reef. And so
Okay.
we had our penthouse, which was $5,000 a night, which in 2004 that's a substantial chunk of coin.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those penthouses had butlers. I've served people who are royalty, which I can't mention, and I've served perfume makers exclusively for Tiffany's, like just everybody. I think Bridget Fonda was probably the pinnacle of that one because she was still so pretty, so gorgeous. And we had a pool, like the bar I worked at had no walls. It was literally just a thatched roof and you could
Ah,
see out to the sea, you could see to the pools, and so you just had that 360-degree view
yeah.
of like very famous people in the pools, which that pool for us was only allowed for the penthouse guests. So we
Right.
had like rock bands and presenters and a lot of Australian celebrities, but Bridget Fonda I think is up there as like the
The
one,
number one.
the number one.
I used to work at a lounge in Toronto that sadly doesn't exist anymore, but it was like the hot spot for a while. And we got all kinds of people through there, like Vin Diesel, Jamie Foxx,
Wow.
we had Mick Jagger, Prince. Um, Liam Neeson was probably my favorite because he's actually a really nice person. God, we had so many. LL Cool J back in like the 2000s when he was super cool.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran, who's also really lovely. I mean, I can't say that everybody who swan through there was as nice as some of these guys, but I have some pretty cool memory photos from those days. Somebody asked, outside of the bar tending, what is your favorite drink to make at home? So I'm going to take that one further. What is your guilty pleasure that you would be embarrassed to admit on, say, Instagram Live?
Um, the Negroni is my favorite at-home cocktail because
That's
it's
not a
111.
guilty pleasure.
I'm gonna give you my guilty pleasure. Give me a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
My 111 because then you can like swap out the gin for mezcal. You can
Right.
do a 6 ounce drink and just sit on the back deck and not have to get up again, which I really love about it.
Hmm.
Um, my guilty pleasure during winter is like a cream liqueur and coffee.
Okay.
Or like I still like my ghetto gimlets. So I like Rose's lime cordial.
Oh my God.
I like Rose's lime cordial a lot, and I think it makes a better gimlet for me personally than like freshly squeezed juice and sugar syrup. I two parts gin, 1 part Rose's lime cordial, and I'm good to go. I'm
Um,
a happy person.
Apparently you have some people who agree with you. Alexis Victoria Wright says, me too.
And I build it over ice. I stir it with my finger or a chopstick, whatever I have in like my cutlery drawer. And again, it's another one of those ones that you can do a big batch and they go sit on the deck. Like why try and shake a cocktail up to sit on the deck to have one little 4-ounce cocktail when you can just make it in a pint glass and go sit on the deck, smoke a cigar, hang out with your family,
Yeah.
and be done for the afternoon.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite go-to cocktail is, I mean, I've always loved margaritas. And I'll do all kinds of twists on those, and I'll do virgin versions where I'll top it up with like Fever Tree Club soda because there's no booze in it, so it's got to have some sparkle, you know. But I admitted this on the last happy hour that my guilty pleasure is a brown cow.
Oh my God,
Yep.
that's not much worse than a cream liqueur and coffee.
No, it's not. Not at all.
The brown cow, I think the brown cow's got that negative connotation about being called a brown cow.
Well, yeah. And I get lazy. I don't even put vodka in mine. I just Kahlua and oat milk. Thank you
Well,
very
that's the
much.
thing is
We're done.
I'm a lazy bartender. Like I work when I'm working behind the bar full time. The last thing I want to do is I always look at bartending like a baseball match, a baseball game. Like when you finish a baseball game, the last thing you want to go do is go hit balls. Like
Yeah.
you want to relax. So why if you're a bartender who goes home to this might annoy a few bartenders actually. If you're a bartender who goes home and makes cocktails, you haven't worked hard enough during your shift. You should be
Yeah.
so mentally exhausted and so physically exhausted at the end of the shift. You just want a beer and a shot of whiskey, and that is it.
Yeah.
And
I drink a lot of scotch at home. Neat.
clean.
Because I can't even be bothered. Well, I don't like it on ice. Apparently, Vet Montreal says making me margaritas is always intimidating.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
you've got a rap in Montreal. You've got some street
Apparently, I
cred.
have. Well, I just have high margarita standards. You know, that's just how I roll.
As you should. The margarita's been bastardized for so long that you should have a good margarita recipe.
Yes, absolutely. What is been your, if you've had any time, for a hobby during lockdown?
You know my answer to this because we've talked too
What
much
free time?
during.
Yeah.
To be honest, if I ever say I have a hobby per se, it would be my super customized racing scooter, Gypsy.
Ooh.
That would be my only hobby. I haven't had a chance to really work on her during COVID, which is a little upsetting because she's my little getaway. Like it's just me. I put my headphones on, I put my helmet on, I go riding. Um, but I haven't really started a hobby per se. I've actually started working more during COVID. Like during lockdown, I worked
Yeah.
more than I did beforehand, and now it's sort of coming back and getting me because it's like I was working a lot before COVID. I started working more during COVID, and now that everything's coming back sort of open in BC, now I'm working more than I was before COVID.
Yep.
So, hobby-wise, no, I didn't start anything new. I started a new company, and that I class that as a hobby.
I
So
don't think that counts, but I appreciate your ambition.
my work is my hobby. So I started a new hobby. That's my new hobby.
Well, you know, I guess you fit into that quote, if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure I didn't say that properly, but that's basically the gist of it.
that's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it.
I would say mine has been gardening. It makes me sound like a 90-year-old woman, but you know, my front balcony is now my going out spot, going out. So I learned all about planting things and not killing them because traditionally I don't have a green thumb, I don't have a brown thumb, I have a black thumb because every plant I've had dies. But I managed to keep them alive this year and I'm very proud of myself for that accomplishment. I'm going to ask you another question, but I'm going to put it to our viewers. Do you have any questions for us? So I'll give you a second while I ask Shawn our next question to put anything in there, even funny questions for us. What was your biggest rookie mistake when you were starting out?
I told the story for the very first time just the other week on a podcast, and when I started in the industry, I was very green. Obviously, I came from landscaping and construction, but I was working in the very first hotel bar, the same hotel bar that was upstairs from the function area that I did my very first wedding in.
Mm-hmm.
And someone ordered a martini, and it was more of a little hotel bar that was like beers and shots and straight spirit and stuff. someone ordered a martini, and I tapped the other bartender on the shoulder and I was like, "This is for you." And I literally just ran out the bar. I put my hands up and was like, "No!" and ran out the bar because I was like, I don't know what a martini is. I have no idea how to make it. I don't want to deal with this right now. And I was like an 18-year-old super green kid, and someone ordered a martini, and I was like, "You've got this, right?" And just left. I didn't want to stick around and learn about it. I just ran away because it was that
It
intimidating.
can be daunting though. It's one of those like simple cocktails that like, do you want gin or vodka? Do you want it up or on ice? Do you want a twist? Do you want olive? Do you want dirty?
Exactly.
Like there's so many combinations, stirred, shaken. Like if you don't get those questions down, you can really like, do you want it dry? Do you want a wet martini? And yes, that's the thing for people who are like, what do you mean? It's liquid. Of course it's wet. Um, oh, somebody said I started making sourdough bread before everyone else did. Good for you. I've
You
had so
made
many people,
sourdough
yeah,
before it was cool.
I know so many people who've done that, and I look at the process that goes into it, and I'm like, nope, I just, no. Like I could make bread, but stuff that takes overnight and you have to culture it. Like it reminds
No.
me of when I was learning
Nope.
about making bourbon and backset and stuff, and I was like, mm-mm, nope, 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 nope. So good for you, um, Amy, I think. And Amanda is asking if a guest comes in and doesn't know what drink to order, what's your go-to recommendation?
So this one's an interesting one because a lot of bars and a lot of bartenders have signature drinks. This is my signature drink. Really, I'll usually ask like 3 to 5 questions about like what do they usually drink. If they're a wine drinker, does that mean like if they like Riesling or Chardonnay? If they're usually a beer drinker, I've had people say, I'm a rye whiskey and ginger guy, and I'll make a cocktail based around flavors of rye whiskey and ginger,
Mm-hmm.
but it will be a proper full-on like cocktail. And
Yeah.
so I think when people come into the bar, like if you ask 3 questions, what do they usually drink? How do they usually drink? What they've eaten for that day, like if they just come from dinner, they go into dinner,
Mm-hmm.
spirit forward, mixed. Um, Once you get those questions down, it's surprising how many people who think, oh, I have no idea what I want to drink. All of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, no, I know what I want to drink.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very like throw the question out and wait for the response back. It's very rarely that people are like, I don't know, to every question. You'll always find something that you'll sort of lean towards. And some people are like, oh, I really like Riesling. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to do spirit forward and mixed? Or you want to do spirit forward, so you want to do like a sweeter style, like classic gin martini forward. So Bianco vermouth, a dash of sort of some fun bitters that you might have on the back bar, not just the classics, and one of the myriad of flavored gins that are on the back bar. So
Yeah.
like maybe Tanqueray Malacca, Martini Bianco, the Miss Better Bitters, sumac and kiwi fruit bitters,
Yeah.
stirred up martini style. There you go. That would be something for a Riesling drinker. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's always 3 to 5 questions that you can ask, and you automatically can connect with that person.
I do the same thing. I usually ask like, what are you in the mood for? Like, so they'll get into like, I want something strong, I want something fresh and light. I almost always used to ask, what do you hate? Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
not want? Because that gives an idea of like flavor profile. And because sometimes like the list of what do you like is super long. So I find that that's a bit shorter. We've
See
got
the
a question.
sorry for the hate list. I 9 times out of 10 go out of my way to try and create a cocktail around someone's hate list to try and change their minds on what they hate, purely because of what they usually hate is because of some bad experience in university or as a teenager. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh no, I can make you a drink that tastes really good from something
And
that
you'll
you
change your
really
mind.
hate, and I'll change your mind. So it's a nice
All right.
challenge for me.
So we're going to take so we've got 4 questions. We'll take those
Okay.
4 questions in sort of like rapid fire manner, and we'll
Okay.
wrap it up after that. So the first one is from Vivette Montreal. What are your trend predictions for 2021? I assume you mean cocktail
Jeez.
trend predictions.
Okay. That's a big question. I think 2021 is going to see a return to simplicity, less staff, lower labor in the way of prep and instigation of cocktails. So I think bars need to start like reevaluating where they sort of stand. You can still do elevated cocktails that are 4 ingredients, 3 ingredients sort of cocktails. But I think a lot of bars are going to have to reevaluate where they stand because they don't have the budgets to charge for labor, for prep. So cocktail-wise, I think there's going to be a big return to simplicity. But that being said, you can still execute in presentation and elevation based around that. Presentation, I think, needs to be a bigger. We're in a position where presentation is a bigger thing for all cocktails.
Yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see the treat yourself both when people decide to go out and at home, where they're sitting in that sort of affordable luxury category. So they're not going to go for like the regular, vodka soda, but they're also not going to go for the $15 or $18 a pour vodka soda either. It's sort of somewhere in that middle ground. You see it at home a lot too. That elevated experience because people aren't going out as much. Somebody was asking, Harry Whitaker, if you don't want to have a drink with alcohol, what are some alternatives you can mix Fever Tree with? So, I mean, there are loads of options. There's non-alcoholic distillates like Seedlip that you can use that we often use for non-alcohol, because I do NOLO is no alcohol or low alcohol content quite often. You can also do mixes with mixers and bitters if you're down with that flavor profile. One of my favorite, I was talking about a twist on a margarita, the virgin version, and it's fresh lime juice, maple syrup, with sort of like
I don't like maple syrup.
Oh, I love maple syrup. And then I do a rim that's sort of half coarse salt with a little bit of demerara sugar in it. And I top it off with some club soda, 3 ingredients, super easy, super tasty. And when I want a margarita, but I don't want to have the booze, it definitely satisfies that, that hankering, I guess.
The one thing I have to say about Seedlip for that one is play around with blending all 3 Seedlips together. So grab all 3 flavors of Seedlip and then play around with blending them. And because I feel like they're all really good separately, but when you blend them together in different proportions and make one big batch of blended Seedlip, it's money.
Yeah, you can even, like I've got the garden at home, you can make virgin martinis with them. So that's a lot of fun. Another question is, what is the most complex cocktail you have ever had to make in a bar?
There's been a lot. FTW, my bar back in 2017, we were very molecular forward. And so every cocktail, we were only open 48 hours a week, but we prepped for 60 hours a week. So that was before we opened. So it was an extra 60 hours a week of prep on top of the 48 hours of opening. So I've done hot cocktails where we have a sous vide on the back bar, keeping all the liquid at a certain temperature. And then it goes into a vacuum pot with herbs and spices at the top. And we would heat it. So the vacuum pot would go up, infuse with the spices, then come back down and be served. I've done a lot of complex cocktails, like multiple step cocktails, but I've been lucky enough that I've had a team that I've built to make it easy. That one, I don't think I've got a straight answer for that one, because I've done, like, when we opened up FTW, we had 18 different styles of ice. Flavored, cubes, crushed. We had 3 different styles of flavored crushed ice. So, yeah. So, like, complexity was the name of the game. But I also believe that you can have complex cocktails with lots of prep as long as the ticket times stay within 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where my thought process always goes, is like lots and lots of prep, quick service.
Yeah, that sounds about right. What do you think is are the main, most important components of a cocktail? I mean, for me, I just think of the axis of flavor, like strong, weak, sort of sour, sweet. I think about mouthfeel, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but you don't want a cocktail that has like a watery, thin feeling about it. So the way that you can do that is like sometimes it's with something that you can emulsify like egg white. Sometimes it's with the addition of sugar. Sugar will give a more complex, like a thicker mouthfeel. I mean, you don't want to go super sweet, but it's to balance out the citrus. So for me, it's all about balance. A good cocktail is about balance. So you can have flavors, but you don't want to have a cocktail that has 100 flavors because it's just sensory overload and it's too much.
I agree with all that. Balance is the big one. It's like, and that takes practice. People go, especially like with all the diet fads and stuff, like, ooh, sugar, but like a little bit of sugar is texture. Like salt is texture. Saline solution, texture.
Yeah.
So you've got to balance out that weak, that strong, that sweet, that sour. So I think the balance is the key word, but I think that just takes time and a lot of tasting, a lot of making things. I still make cocktails now where I'll be like, yes, this is the one. Make it all up. Like I have way more failures than I have successes. Then the team will taste and like, that's flat as F. And I'm like, oh, sweet, that's awesome. Like, let's start that again.
Back to the drawing board. Yeah.
And you dump it out and you start all over again. And so it just takes practice. And sort of once you learn, going back to the classics, learn all the classics and how their makeup is. The reason why they're classics is they're balanced already. So learn those, and then everything else is easy.
Yep. I think that's great advice. So that's our last question.
Wow.
So this was only supposed to go to 5:30, but we're having so much fun.
Oh, really? I thought it was supposed to be an hour.
No, it's about half an hour, but we had fun. It's been almost 50 minutes. So,
Well, that's perfect.
It's happy hour. We go with the flow, right?
Exactly.
So I just want to say thank you to you, Shawn and Clives, and everybody who joined us today. For anybody who's interested in the recipe, it will be going up on Fever Tree Canada's Instagram page tomorrow afternoon. So until then, I'm just going to say be well, stay safe, and mix with the best. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.